Hey, name's Derek. I'd like to end up welcoming you to another RPG rant. Let the rambling begin. This time we're going to end up taking a look at that slippery slope, the one that's not often acknowledged by players or GMs. What is that slippery slope, you might ask? Well, it's really simple. Player A somehow has managed to luck out and maybe has two 18s to his two highest stats, has managed to get as many skills and feats as completely possible, humanly possible, dare I say, in Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, take your pick, has somehow managed to get the GM to give him a +1 longsword at the very start of the game, and suddenly you ran into that situation where this level 1 character is somehow doing 30 points of damage in a single round of combat plus attacks of opportunity. You're wondering how that happened. Okay, well, let's follow what the progression happens after that. This is where it gets slippery. You see, if you're playing by the book, right? I know mine's carved up a bit, but kind of ends up happening after a while. What ends up happening is that this character, in order to, if he plays by the numbers, is going to blitz through every challenge going, right? There is nothing you can throw at this person at equivalent challenge rating that will prove to be a challenge for him. He's going to have to blitz through it. The rest of the players, maybe they're not rolling so well. Maybe they didn't take the time to make sure that they ended up getting that 30 damage cap out of the start, or a 76 armor class after level 3. Whatever min-maxing, I got to get this highest statistical advantage in this particular area because that's where the game stress point is, and break it. Well, here's what happens. You have one player who's capable of basically soloing these adventures that are supposed to be effective challenge rating. Now, if you end up building it up too fast, let's say they're, okay, you want to know what? I've made the decision as a GM that I'm going to end up giving them a challenge rating 2 higher. That sounds about fair. Yeah, he's been doing extremely well, this particular individual, so I'm going to throw up these minions that are a little bit higher. Maybe he is starting to get challenged. Maybe. But if we're going directly for what the XP gain for this encounter is, hey, guess what? You've now just made it so that this character is leveling up extremely quickly, a lot quicker than he should be, in fewer encounters, which means in order to level out the amount of treasure for his equivalent level, which is expected X amount after this many rounds of combat with this many effective character level worth of combat, this appropriate challenge rating. Well, it starts to go a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, where he just keeps blitzing past all of these encounters at such a rapid pace that he's gaining levels a lot quicker. Maybe even the party's gaining a few levels with him. Maybe they're keeping up because they're showing up to the same sessions. You want to know what? You don't care who ended up doing the most damage. Everybody gets XP because, the person who threw a rock, that 5-year-old that threw a rock at the black dragon, also clearly gets the share of the XP for that encounter just for being there. Now he starts leveling up. Well, now your effective challenge rating ends up turning into, it's expected that you have this much gear at this level for this kind of encounter. Well, the problem is he's been going up against stuff that's higher than he should have been. He's might be gaining more valuable treasure, but not as frequently, which turns into its own slippery slope because now all of a sudden you're probably gaining items because, again, we're going by the book here. You are likely rolling on some kind of table just to end up saying, okay, apparently you got a wand of magic missile with 47 charges in it, and it was made by a level 18 spellcaster. I don't know why a level 18 spellcaster is going to make a wand of magic missile like that, but hey, you want to know what? All the power to him. So what starts happening here? Well, he starts going through encounters. He starts leveling extremely quickly for an extremely short period of time. This is usually indicative when you end up having characters who say, I've played this game for a year, one day for 4 to 6 hours every week, and by the end of the year, I have a level 20 character. Not sure on how that happened, but it did. Well, the reason that typically is because the GM feels like everything you're going through is just not strong enough, so he starts putting in monsters that are stronger in accordance. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because what was happening earlier is a discussion on multiclassing. Multiclassing, probably one of the best things that Dungeons & Dragons has ever done, right? You're not locked in as a wizard the whole time. You can actually go ahead and maybe throw in a few rogue levels, maybe throw in a few sorcerer levels, that hidden talent of the blood has just come into light. Maybe you've discovered faith, and now your faith is being rewarded, and you are receiving the blessings of your god. Yeah, you might consider taking a cleric level or two. Not much, but just enough to end up going, yeah, I have a little bit of flex here. Unfortunately, what ends up typically happening is people end up starting the game with a level 1 to 20 build. This is the feat I'm going to take on this level. This is the feat I'm going to take on this level. This is how I'm going to set my skills. This is the items I'm probably going to have to end up buying for, and I'm going to get this checklist going from the top to bottom. Which is great if you're playing an MMO where the party is trying to end up doing raids and you're treating your encounters like that. But if you are, well, I'm sorry to tell you, most of everything that you could do with Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder doesn't really come to light. The reason it doesn't is because, and I've run into this several times. Now, I'm not claiming that all of you can't roleplay, but I've played in my fair share of one-shots, and they ain't pretty. Usually what ends up happening is you'll have one person who has built a character where he swears that he somehow managed to end up rolling for stats, 18, 18, 17, 16, 16, and 111. Maybe 13, maybe an 11, just to prove he isn't cheating. And everybody else, what was the last character I ended up rolling? 15, 13, 13, 12, 11, 10. I was lucky I didn't even get a negative modifier, but that's about it. That's baseline stats. Now, if you're going to break it down to who has the highest stats and what you're going to go for, go right ahead. But this is one of those slippery slopes that happens when you end up playing specifically point for point, following Player's Guide, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's very ugly when one of these characters shows up. However, there is a solution. There is, in fact, a solution. You need to end up putting this player in situations that kind of focus away from that combat a bit. Get him to start having to tackle on problems that aren't normally associated with the idea of grand adventure. I'm going to hack and slash everything. Get him thinking about the actual situation. When I end up running a game of Pathfinder, we'll do 2 or 3 sessions before we even get to a dungeon. Everything else is building up to it. It's trying to give you a reason to think about why you're going in there, not just the here's 5 copper coin. Can you get rid of those kobolds for us out of the mine? That would be great. Okay, 6 copper pieces, but we're not going any higher than that. The town treasury just can't handle it. It's not going to happen. You need to start assessing these characters, and first thing I would end up saying is check your experience. Do not, I repeat, do not use the XP table or challenge rating as your base guideline. Instead, observe about what it's expecting you to give a session. You can generally figure that out with some basic math, and you can figure out the average. But you can look at this and go, okay, this is about how fast this game is designed for. This is about how much treasure it gains. And end up taking it as a point that even if they do slay the dragon, what have you, at 3rd level, yeah, you might get some neat magic items. You might get a little bit of extra XP, but don't give them everything. Instead, give them something that might be a little bit more interesting. Don't just roll random loot on the table. Think about what is in there. What can you place in there that might be an interesting little plot hook? If he desperately wants that +5 Vorpal sword, right? Fine. Let's hand it to him. But what happens when that Vorpal sword is currently being sought out by its owner, and he's not taking no for an answer? You think you can lop his head off. That's great, except it's his, specifically attuned for him. And all of a sudden, when you swing, where's that +5 bonus? Where's that Vorpal? Just seemed to take it away. Well, no, it refuses to go against its owner, its creator. Okay, well, now we got a bit of an interesting plot. I do have this power, but apparently there's something that it just doesn't work against. Why is that? Start researching, going into the development of this magic item, build it up, and you will find that this one item that you've given them due to this particular endeavor builds plot, builds encounters of its own, and gives some flavor to your game that is unique specifically to your GM style, your campaign. But the one thing it also allows you to do is stop this detrimental curve that kicks off. Is it starts with, I've killed goblins, 5 or 6 of them in a single round of combat because of, let's just say, a spear and unlocking your limit on a whole bunch of attacks of opportunity. That's a basic one. Okay, so you end up doing that. Now all of a sudden you step into a room and a whole bunch of goblins that are not equipped with bows, because I'm not cherry picking, start charging you, and you realize you just killed 6 of them before your attack at level 1. Need to consider what the heck's going on here. But if this is what your players are going to be doing, if they're specifically trying to build these shenanigans where it's, I'm trying to find the system's weak points and break them, as opposed to, I want to develop a character that might be interesting, throw them for a loop. Specifically go out of your way to throw them for a loop. Get them engaged in things other than how high of a damage die are they throwing at the table? How much of a modifier are they getting? Get them out of that headspace. There's a few tricks you can do that. That's a whole nother video. But this is specifically regarding, I want you guys to think about that slippery slope. How would you deal with it? Leave a comment. Give it some thought. What happens when you have that one character who maybe rolled absurd stats and is just currently demolishing through content, meanwhile everybody else is struggling not to get one-shotted by anything that could remotely challenge this one player? What are you going to do when this player starts out leveling his own gear? And it's like, well, in order to keep the ECL, I need to end up giving him the appropriate gear. And the other players, despite the fact that they're effectively throwing rocks, well, he ended up deciding to bring an LMG. It's something to end up giving some thought. If you found this at all interesting, feel free to press the like button. And if you'd like to end up seeing more of the content, hit the subscribe button. You can figure out where that red button is down there. And feel free to respond with a combat, or with a combat, with a comment down below. I check them out from time to time, and it's always good to end up getting feedback. Take a look at it for the rest of the videos. You can end up finding them on that side, I believe. Yep. And take care of yourself. Until next time.